and I've been working on React Native for the past 2 months. And before that, I have been a full stack developer in JavaScript. And like Ajay said, React Native is actually a great boon to the JavaScript developers because we have been working on the JavaScript platform for a long time that it feels natural to build mobile applications with React Native. So before React Native, I actually worked on React JS. So actually this event meetup is about for the beginners to start up. So I thought what will be the biggest barrier for web developers to. Okay, so then the main thing which I faced difficult was the navigation part because in React Native we won't be having the support from the URL. We don't get the React router support in React Native. So we tend to use other React Native's navigation components. So I'll just run through a quick demo app which I have built, which explains navigation component in Native. Okay, React Native actually has 3 navigation components, which is Navigator iOS, Navigator, and the navigation experimental. So if you are using iOS app, if you are using React Native and you are only concentrating on the iOS part, you can definitely go for Navigator iOS. Its navigation is really similar to that of the UI navigation controller, which looks actually really native in the iOS side, but most of the people won't be using it because the main reason they tend to go for React Native development is because they need a cross-platform support. So this is the widely used navigation component, Navigator. And the good thing about Navigator is it's easy and predictable. So you can actually perform all the operations on the screen which we are going to navigate to. Like we can pass the data, we can switch screens, we can go back. But we can easily trace it back in our code. So I'll just give a quick demo of the app I have built a navigation demo. So this app actually contains 4 screens. One is okay. This app actually has 5 screens: the splash screen, home screen, and in the second page I am actually having a different parameter called data because I'm actually want to show you how to pass the data across the screens. And in the index.android and index.ios, I have just imported the app.js file. So both Android and iOS will be sharing the same code base. And so this is the app. This is actually the index number. I've given the index number of 0 to the home page. And these are the next page. So I've actually gonna walk you through how we are gonna handle the navigation here. Because in the normal navigation, React actually adds a gesture support. So you can actually drag back to our previous page. But usually when your app starts up, you need to show up a splash screen. Then you shouldn't be going back to the splash screen. We shouldn't allow the user to drag back. But in the default navigation part, it actually gives a gesture which lets the user go to the previous screen. So here's how actually we are gonna handle this. So in the navigator object, we are passing in 3 to each route. First of all, we'll give it the initial route. So in the app, we are specifying an initial route. I'm actually importing this routes file into the app.js and specifying it the initial route, which is actually the home page. So when it reaches the home page, I am actually using the ES6 spread operator here. So let me show you what happens. Yeah, this is actually a common problem faced by lots of people. You will actually go through the splash screen and then you can actually swipe it back because the default navigation route provides a gesture object. what I did here is I create a new object. I spread all the navigator component, and in the navigator I am actually giving it an object called float from right. This is actually specifies the transition which the page should be taking, and I have set the gesture to an empty object. So when the navigation component comes up, it won't be exposing any gestures. So next up, what I'm having is I am actually passing in a root object. In navigator, first in initial root I specified which the root is gonna from, and in the render screen I call in a function this.render screen. And in the configure screen object, what I'm gonna do is I can check which route is coming up in the next. For this, the home pages, when the home page is coming up, I have specified the float from right transition and I have disabled the gestures. And when the first page is coming up, I'm gonna give it a new transition or float from bottom. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna changes the transition. So this is the when you insert it back, it will automatically apply the reverse of the original. Let me show you the home page component. Here I given a button which actually navigates to the next page, and here I have given it a function which actually pushes the route to the navigator prop. And okay, let me zoom it out. So what I did is every time the route is changing, I am calling this render scene function, and in this render scene function I am getting the route's index. The route index I have defined in here. Whenever I am specifying the route, I am actually specifying the index itself, and whenever the index comes up, I am returning a different page. So for -1 I am returning a splash page, and whenever I am calling the page, I am passing in some of the object. The navigator object actually sends in the component object itself. So if you change any navigator parameters from inside the component, it will automatically reflect back to app.js. This is actually path reference. And I am passing in the route function so that each screen can get what are all the routes that are currently present in the navigation stack. So in the home page, when I click the navigate option, I am just using the route stack, and I am pushing in the second route, which actually calls in the second on first page, 0, 1, 2. Yeah, it calls in the first page, and it will open up the next page. So this is actually the render scene component I have shown you some way before. It actually contains the properties of the route object, like what kind of transition it's gonna make, what kind of the gestures which are available to it, and for preventing the swipe back, we need to disable the gestures. Yeah, and of course, route can be sent as a separate file, so each component can be aware of which route is present in, so that they can be navigated. And the navigator object, this is the navigator object which I have sent by reference to all the screens. So whenever a screen makes any change to the navigator component, it will actually get reflected in the app.js file. So it will actually call the configure scene again, and the render scene function will be called again. So these are the navigation methods which are available with React Native. In push and pop methods, actually, as the name implies, they add a new screen and they actually remove a screen from the stack. So whenever I click the next page, I call in the push function, and when I click back, I actually pop it in the first page. I actually added the logic here, navigate back, and when I click the navigate back, I simply pop the navigator. So it will go back by one screen. And the replace, actually there are lots of navigation methods available, like pop, n, pop to index, replace with, and many other, but replace is commonly used for like login and logout pages and all. It actually replaces the current route instead of pushing and popping, but the disadvantage of replace is that it cannot have any transition effects. Likewise, all the replace type of operations in navigation cannot have any transitions. So we can use pop to n, pop at index methods like that. So now we need to pass the data along the scene, where imagine a simple event app where tapping a calendar event actually opens a new page with the specific event you just clicked. So you need to pass the data from one screen to another. So here in the route scene, I am in the second page, I am having an additional parameter called data. So here I can actually mention what are the data. So in second page, I will know just by looking at the routes page, okay, I need to pass the data in the second page route. So what I gonna do is, in the second page, I'm gonna send a message. I'm gonna send a message to the third page. So this is a message from the second page, hello. Is it all visible to you all? Is the app? Okay. So how I am sending the data along the app is, I wrote a function called navigate and send message. In here I am using the ES6 object assign function and create a deep copy of the route's fourth object. Here in the second page I am making a deep copy of that, because actually when you assign a ES object in JavaScript, it actually gets passed by reference. So I am making a deep copy, and in that I am pushing in the new route along with the data. I have set the data in the state and I am passing it through the new route object, and it's getting pushed into the next page. So likewise we can actually move to a different page, like I can directly move to the third page and get back to the first page. React navigation actually provides lots of functions like that. You just need to specify which route object you need to push into the stack. So in the navigation to third function, I just push the route from the fourth place in the route stack. So I directly pushed in the third page. And one of the most complex things when it comes to routing is you need to handle the back button in Android. So this actually looks like a headache for most of the developers, because you will be building in an iOS development environment, but you wouldn't have thought about the Android side of the function, and you will have to rewrite your code again. So what I did is, in the render scene function, I have created a global variable for navigator and the route function. So after that, back Android is actually an event listener. It's not a normal function, it's an event listener. So once you set up this event listener, it will keep listening for a specific event. So it can be used outside the React component. So I am taking the back Android completely outside the React component here. And I am specifying the event as hardware back press. So whenever the back button gets pressed in whatever screen, this event listener will be able to catch that event. So what I will do is, these navigator and route variables are specified outside the React component as a var variable instead of let, and I am actually passing in the route and navigator inside, which is coming inside the render scene function. So these two are objects, and I haven't deep copied them, so they will be passed by reference. So when I pop a variable from here, it will actually gonna affect the whole apps. It will gonna affect the navigator object across the entire app. So here's the fun part. I have specified the index was passed in as -1. So whenever -1 and 0 for the home page. So whenever we are gonna come across a screen which has an index greater than 1, you just pop it up. So from the first page to the third page, whenever you press the back button, it will pop the screen and reduce the screen level. But when you reach the home page or the splash screen, it will actually returns a false which means the app will get exited. It will completely kill off the app. So this way we can actually, it makes handling the back Android simple. This is actually one of the implementations. You can actually come up with your own implementation in n number of ways for handling the back Android. So apart from this, back Android, yeah, it can be used to exit, which I showed you. Back Android event listener, when you return true, it will perform no action. When you return false, it kills the app. So if you are in a login page or a forget password, you can just return false and kill the app when the user clicks the back button. So then I'm actually wanted to speak about the React Native navigation experimental component, which actually uses Redux style of navigation. It's actually a pretty new component and it uses reducers. But actually, last week, there was this new navigation component that came up from React community called React Native Navigation for React Native. Okay, this is actually a cool stuff. It actually provides navigation for Android and iPhone in actually a native look. So actually you see it in Android. This is how the native Android navigation is going to happen. And this is the good thing about this. It's actually built by the React community and it's actually released like a week ago. Yeah, the last week there were actually a lot of good packages. Like he said, there's this Lottie design package which actually converts your After Effects graphics into native graphics. It's actually a really cool package. It's actually made by Airbnb. It supports iOS, Android, and React Native. What you need to do is create an After Effects animation and import it to JSON using a plugin, and you can directly call it inside your own React Native code. This was released 2 days ago. So React Native is actually getting lots of attraction. There are actually lots of new libraries coming up. I haven't tried the React navigation library yet, but I'm definitely going to recommend you because they have some well documented stuff and there are lots of effects. You can even have the sidebars and all inside the navigation itself. See, they are having the drawer navigation, which actually helps you create a drawer. Actually, in Android, iOS, they have no inbuilt support for drawers, but it's actually giving you the support for creating drawers and the tabs in the React Native. So, yes, that's it from my part for the navigation session. So, if anyone's having any questions, you can just please ask me.
iOS we can give that gradient color, like from gradient red to blue, like the color transformation in background in Instagram. You know that gradient feel. Yeah, can we give in React Native?
Definitely you can buy the linear component.
Yes, this gradient kind of things we can do with the style sheet component, right? The native
I think we can't do with style sheets. It's not the exact style sheet which CSS provides.
No, it's not exact style sheet, but what the kind of gradient you asked, right? It's kind of things.
Yeah, but only for that reason they are building the linear gradient. You can't achieve that with the native style sheet component it provides. The React Native provides. I tried to build one gradient effect, but it was not achievable with the native style sheet. So I just surfed around and just saw that linear gradient.
Have you tried the native style sheets component?
That's what. It was not achievable with that native style sheet component. So we just need to depend on another library called linear gradient.
I think we can write some custom style sheets for this to solve this kind of problems. I think so.
I have tried with style sheet.
Yeah,
that's what they say. So you can't achieve gradient with style sheet component. So you just use linear gradient component.
Then about Lottie, that library, Android does not support Flash, right? SWF.
Okay.
Then how that Lottie is working?
The thing is, Lottie, the animation is exported as a JSON file.
JSON.
Yeah. In After Effects, you create the animation, and it gets exported as a JSON file. So you can just use the Lottie package, npm package, and run it in your Android. Yeah. It's actually a good library. I just now checking it out.
So, anyone else have any questions? Leave the navigation. If you have any general questions, you can just ask.
Or if anybody wants to speak, I don't know how much time we have. I think what time is it? Yeah, so it's almost 1 o'clock. So if anybody wants to spend a few minutes just talking about any project that you're working on that you'd like to share. If anybody wants to do that, any questions, then you're most welcome to ask. So just a quick note, we want to do this every month, if possible, if there is demand. And we'd certainly like people, just today, having met all of you today, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who are doing some really interesting stuff. So Murugan, we've spoken, so maybe the next time, in March when we do the next meetup, maybe you can share some of your experiences with React and generally with all the work that you do. I'm sure everybody else is going to benefit from that. Shreyas, you as well, so if you can maybe do a quick presentation, it'll be great. So, and anybody else, right? So, the last time we'd put up a post on Meetup asking for people to come forward. We didn't get too many responses, but I think that's it's typical. But we've all kind of met now, and we kind of know each other. So, so I think now that we all know each other, we'll be less shy to come forward and do a presentation. So, any thoughts on when we can have the next presentation? Anybody? So mid-March, would that work? So around then. So Saturday, is Saturday good or is Friday better? What? Saturday? Okay. Okay. So we'll aim for somewhere around mid-March, one of those Saturdays. We'll figure that out. We'll put it up on Meetup. Also, there is this Facebook group. I don't know if everybody is there on that, but do come and check us out. We've got that URL up there, so it's facebook.com/group/ReactNative. So come and find us there. And yeah, it'll be great to actually hear from you, through the month, right? So use Facebook for that. So come across any interesting articles, whatever, put it up there, so all of us can benefit from that. Keep the conversation going, right? So I think it'll be fun to stay in touch. What else? I hope this was useful. So, look, we are learning React ourselves, right? So, for some of us, we're presenting for the first time in front of an audience. So, but yeah, it's been good fun preparing for this and actually making it to this meetup here. Just meeting everybody here has been great fun. It's good to have so many people from outside of RedBlackTree outside of work. So hope to keep this going. So anybody else have anything to say? Any questions, suggestions? How can we make this better? Do let us know. So anybody have anything to say? Okay, there's some coffee and cookies and stuff outside still, so we can still hang around and
that's fine.
catch up.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
But really, I can message me anytime. I'll be replying to you as soon as I can.
Yeah, so LinkedIn, Facebook, catch us out there. Be happy to see you. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.